Hello there and welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With me are the Paralympic gold medalist Giles Long and the political correspondent for the Financial Times, Kiran Stacey. Tomorrow's front pages, let's have a look at them, starting with the Daily Express. Now, it's headlining research which it says shows that eating more oily fish could extend someone's life expectancy. And the Independent leads on the Work and Pension Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith's comment earlier today that he could live on £53 a week as the changes to the benefits system come into force. The Telegraph also headlines the welfare story. It says the Chancellor George Osborne has come out fighting on the changes, saying 9 out of 10 people will be better off. There's also a picture there of the jockey Katie Walsh ahead of next weekend's Grand National. She has sparked controversy by saying some racehorses are better treated than children. According to the Financial Times, Berlin and Paris, along with some of the other members of the EU, have snubbed the invitation to take part in the British government's current review of the relationship between Brussels and member states. The Guardian is focusing on the Chancellor's defence of welfare changes, but its a striking picture on the right there is about the plight of lambs born in the freezing weather of late. It says hill farmers in Wales face their worst crisis in 60 years as a number of animals have died in the heavy snows there. The Times is a story about a second toll motorway for Britain. It also says proposals to force newspapers to pay all the costs of legal cases, even if they win, would be a breach of human rights. In the Daily Mail, there's a story on the number of pupils excluded or expelled from school for sexual bullying, assaults and harassment. And on to the Mirror finally. It's reflecting on the words of Ian Duncan-Smith, who said if he had to, he could live on £53 a week, or as the paper puts it, just over £7 a day. Okay, guys, I mean, let's start with the Independent. And, of course, it is the big story of the day, welfare reform. And the comments that Ian Duncan-Smith made on the Today programme this morning, I mean, he walked right into it, frankly, if you heard it. He could live on £53 a week, apparently, John.
Well, that's what he's saying. Interestingly, actually, there's been a Change.org petition with more than 53,000 people have already asked him to see if he can actually do that for a year. And I think it's the cheeky sportsman inside me which kind of thinks, well, you know, maybe we should we'll have a big countrywide sweepstake and see how long maybe he can last.
If he could do it. But, I mean, it's not a lot of money, is it, Kiran? I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's the point that that is being made by critics of the changes.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a disastrous start to the government's fight back on their welfare measures, because George Osborne tomorrow is going to go out there fighting. He's going to take his message to people like the churches, who we've heard in recent days have serious concerns about the amount of money people are going to have to live on benefits. And just as he's about to do that, Ian Duncan-Smith says, oh yeah, £50 a week, yeah, I think I could do that. I mean, maybe he could if he really scrimped and saved, but this kind of looks like a politician who's slightly lost touch with reality. In defence of Ian Duncan-Smith, I don't think he has lost touch with reality. He is very conscious.
He's spent a very long time coming to this conclusion, hasn't he? And actually turned down a job to sort of move to another job in
That's right. And he actually has an interesting story, because after he was, of course, Tory leader and he then stepped down, he then spent some time on a council estate.
Yeah, up in Glasgow, wasn't he?
I think that's right, yeah. And what he saw there, it completely changed his mind, really, about the benefit system, and that's why he's doing some of what he's doing, not all of what he's doing. Some of this is just purely to save money, let's be honest. But it just looks, it's a terrible headline. Yes, I could live on £7 a day.
Well, especially in conjunction with the picture on the front of the Independent there, with his nice sort of listed house in the background. Yeah, you're right. He does. He looks like a man who's out of touch.
Out of touch. I mean, is the problem though, Giles, that all the rhetoric about who's going to be affected and who's going to be harmed as a result of these changes, actually 3/4 of those people who are going to be affected are actually in work. So they're not skivers, they're not scroungers, they're actually people who are trying to scrape together a living, and they are being hit.
That's right, and it's not actually in this, but certainly, I mean, it's something that features through a lot of the papers. You know, this sort of case of a market trader who's, up at the crack of dawn, works incredibly hard, and is still going to see a reduction in benefits, and life is going to get yet even harder, even though he's out there trying to make the most of it. So it is. I think, in fairness to him, I think he is caught between a rock and a hard place. The government has got to save money, but at the same time, someone's always going to lose out, and that's never. That's that's where do you reconcile that? That's a very, very difficult thing to do.
Sure. I mean, yeah, Kiran, I mean, the fact is, what is it? Almost 30% or over 30% of every single penny that this country produces, in terms of GDP, goes on the benefit bill.
It's that amount of government spending goes on benefit.
Government spending, yeah.
Yeah, but we should remember most of that is pensions.
Which is my next point.
I mean, what we're talking about here. Yes, the benefits bill is large, or the welfare bill is large, but most of that is pensions, which we can't do a lot about, to be honest, or we can do certain things about. But the government is absolutely loath, of course, to start going after pensioners, which is why we have this scenario where a lot of benefits are getting cut, but the things that aren't getting cut are things like free bus passes for the elderly, free TV licences, the winter fuel allowance. I mean, those ones are not getting touched. So I think there is a quote somewhere here where George Osborne says something like, we're making the difficult choices that we have to. Well, they haven't made the really difficult choices.
Yeah, I mean, the Telegraph picks up the story as well. Osborne comes out fighting on benefits, and that is a problem, isn't it, Giles? I mean, the sense that certain people are being hit, but other people aren't being hit, namely pensioners, who actually account for the largest proportion of the benefit bill.
Well, yeah, and also, of course, make up a large portion of Tory voters. So, I don't think we should shy away from that.
You're so cynical.
Giles,
come on, man.
It's years of sport that have driven me to that. Yes, but I mean, well, he is saying that 9 out of 10 people are going to be, and working households are going to be better off, and he's saying by nearly an average of £300 a year. I think damn lies and statistics. I think to a certain extent, you can look at these figures whichever way you want to.
Well, what he really wants to focus on, of course, the Chancellor, is what the government, to be fair, has spent a lot of money doing, which is lifting the rate at which people start paying income tax. So it will eventually go up to £10,000. So your first £10,000 that you earn, that you will not pay any income tax at all. That costs them a lot of money, and it saves people a reasonable amount of money at all, and that's why he's stressing, and
that we are doing
things to make people better off as well.
Trap. Yeah.
Sure.
That is the point. It's worth pointing out, though, that I think it's mentioned on the front page of The Guardian as well. There is a report out tomorrow by a group called the Resolution Foundation that points out that when another part of the benefits changes that we're about to see later on in this month, which is something called the universal credit, which is just about putting everybody onto one system of payment, when that comes in, what will happen is, because that gets, how much you get under universal credit gets judged after tax. So if your tax bill is going down, the amount of benefits that you get from the universal credit goes down as well. So for the very poorest, they don't really benefit from the tax threshold going up, which I think is an important point to bear in mind.
All right. Okay, mate.